This is the Stand Ups Throwdown MMA podcast. That's right, we're back with another episode that brings you all things UFC and in particular UFC 189. I'm joined this week by Dave Danger and this is episode 15. So welcome back to the Stand Ups Throwdown MMA podcast with me, as always, your host, Bryan Lacey. No surprises there. What might be a little surprise is I'm bringing you this episode live, more accurately, recorded in Ibiza, ladies and gentlemen. I'm out here on the party isle itself. I'm not popping pills and watching the sunrise on Cafe Del Mar. Unfortunately, that would be a pretty good way to spend some time out here. But I'm working. Oh yeah, working. I say working. I've done one gig, and the rest of the time I'm enjoying free buffets and as much beer as my body can take. So it's been fun. So I don't want you worrying about me. I'm all right, ladies and gentlemen. I'm literally looking forward and out to a beautiful ocean with some nice boats going past my window, beautiful white sandy beaches, and people enjoying their holidays. But to be honest, you're not interested at all what's in front of me. What we are interested in is what's behind us, and that was a ridiculous, unbelievable weekend for MMA and the UFC. Crazy. UFC 189, can't wait to talk about that. I'll be honest, I haven't seen the Ultimate Fighter finale, so don't expect any reaction on that as of yet. I was travelling to Ibiza when that was on, so I will catch up on that, but there's plenty to talk about with UFC 189. Oh my goodness. So before we crack on with this episode, and we get talking and stuck into UFC 189, just to say thank you again to my podcast sponsors, MMA UK. Lovely work getting the podcast out there, brilliant people. Check them out on Twitter at @WeAreMMAUK /original MMA UK on Facebook, and of course on the internet, MMAUK.net. They've got some new writers on board as well, and they're churning out some amazing articles and some insight into the world of MMA, not just in the UK but all over the place. So brilliant stuff from them, and thank you very much for supporting the podcast. Also, just to say sorry about last week's episode, as far as it not getting up on iTunes or Stitcher or some of those directories until Saturday, which was which was a mistake. Basically, we've got the podcast website being redone, and there was a little issue with the PowerPress plugin, which talks to all these sites and bounces it around, and we fixed it now. So it's a very dull sentence to say, but it's all fixed, and this episode will be on all the directories you're used to, as well as SoundCloud, YouTube, and some other places as well. So let's crack on with this one. I've got a brilliant guest for it, and one more thing, I almost forgot, I've got it written down here, just to mention, if you are going to UFC Glasgow next weekend, there are still tickets available to the after show party organised by MMA UK's Peter Knox. It's the official Glasgow UFC Glasgow after party. The fighters will be there, loads of fans. If you're up there and you want to extend your UFC experience and have a bit of fun, maybe rub shoulders with some of these amazing fighters, check out the Facebook events link that I will put up on the podcast and on the Facebook page as well, and you can still get tickets. There's only a few left, but there's still some going. We're going to try and fill it out. Looks like it's going to be an amazing way to extend your UFC experience, so check that out. Before we crack on with this episode, just to say I didn't manage to get some of the fighters from UFC Glasgow either. They're all busy doing their weight cutting and schedules and stuff, and what we had planned couldn't happen, and it's understandable. Why would they want to talk to a chubby comedian in Ibiza when they're trying to cut weight? They don't want to speak to someone who's got 4 buffets inside of them, do they? So we will try and catch up with a few of those fighters after the event. And look forward to watching that next Saturday. Now, this podcast has got Dave Danger on it. You might have remembered him from an earlier podcast. He's a New Zealand comedian, ex-MMA fighter himself, and also he's a fully qualified and practicing trauma nurse in New Zealand hospitals. And one of the reasons I wanted to get him on, not just because of his insight into the UFC 189 from a fighter's perspective and also a fan's perspective, but with all the stuff going on with IVs, the changing rules, the weight cutting, wanted to get his medical insight into how he thinks that will affect the fighters, not just for the weight cuts, but also recovering for their performances in the cage as well, and some brilliant insight from him. So let's just get him on board. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the podcast, our very own Dave Danger. So here we are again. Welcome back to the Stand Ups Throwdown MMA podcast, and I'm joined once again by the wonderful Dave Danger. How's things, Dave?
Very good, my man. How are you?
I'm good. Well, do you know what I've realised? We've spoken. This is our second time of speaking, which isn't enough to be honest, Dave. But what I've noticed is that in the two times we've spoken, we've been in four different countries.
That's very true, actually. Very true.
You know, you did New York and I was in England, and now you're in New Zealand and I'm in Ibiza. So this relationship, we might not speak often, but we get to see the world even if we don't get to see each other. That's not a bad thing, is it?
Not a bad thing at all. Not a bad thing at all.
And how's things down there, mate? How's New Zealand treating you?
New Zealand is very good. Freezing cold at the moment. Where New Zealand has this wonderful thing where we think, it won't be that cold, so we have no double glazing, no central heating, and then it gets down to like 2 degrees overnight, and we all freeze our tits off.
There we go. Yeah, but you do get a decent summer, don't you? Is it?
We get an amazing summer. Summer is totally amazing. Just winter gets a bit cold sometimes.
Well, you deserve it then. If you have that nicer summer, we get our summer is basically a Tuesday in July in England. So we've had that, and we're back to being cold. So this is very rare for me to be out in the sun. But anyway, let's not mess about, mate, because it's been a ridiculous weekend of fights and all sorts of stuff going on. UFC 189 was unbelievable. Lived up to the main card was just phenomenal. Lived up to the hype. What did you think of it? First of all, as an overall event, and then we're gonna break down the fights bit by bit.
Overall event, I thought it was really, really good. The fights were actually exciting because often you get these really low down, like average cards with amazing fights, and then you'll get like this really big card everyone's hyped for, and the fights are just so lackluster because everyone's so good and so cautious and so desperate to win that they kind of fight really safe. But this card, they just went out there and started banging, and it was exciting. It was good to watch. It
was phenomenal. I thought the look and the feel of the event as well felt very different. It was the first Reebok. First of the Reebok era as far as the uniforms or kit, whichever ones you want to call them.
Yeah.
But also the production as well. It felt right from the start. They changed the music. The intro was different. It just felt like a quite a big turning of a corner for the UFC. They've been on a very gradual and quite high incline as far as their evolution. But this event. Because of the McGregor hype train, it just felt like we're about to turn a corner and there's more exciting things to come from the UFC.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think the only bad thing about the fighter deals is the fighters that are losing out, unfortunately, with this whole Reebok thing. They're talking to Donald Cerrone, and I think he loses $20,000 per fight now as a result of the Reebok thing. And he's one of the high echelon guys that gets paid quite a bit. So you can see how, under the Reebok structure, so you can see how some of the lower fighters are really going to be struggling now.
Yeah, it's not good when you're taking money out of the fighters' pockets. They're sort of saying they're playing the long game, and hopefully this one big sponsor will bring more, and this first deal will then lead to an even bigger second deal, so then it'll work its way down. But for the fighters in there at the minute, and like you said, Donald Cerrone is one of the highest earners off the back of the sponsors he's got, and I do love his sponsors. You look at all the other fighters, they've got like Muscle Farm or that Dynamic Fastener, that was a popular one that was going around for a while. Donald Cerrone, Budweiser and pizza on his shorts. That's what I like. That's what I like about the man. But this card wasn't about Donald Cerrone, although he would have been a great addition, and sticking him on it as well would have been a cherry on top.
Totally.
But it was leading up to the fights, the McGregor show. It did sort of with the Robbie Lawler and McDonald fight. They certainly showed why they should have had a bit more attention. But let's first of all talk about the McGregor-Mendes fight. The hype leading up to it was, even though it was only 2 weeks in after the Aldo change, was almost as big as the Aldo one, and I was as pumped. And with that hovering question of the wrestler over the top, I was very, very nervous about what was going to happen with McGregor. What did you think of the performance, and and also him taking the win in the way he did?
See, a lot of people bag Conor McGregor, but I really like him because I was so amped for this fight, because he got me amped for this fight. Like, he got everyone behind him for this fight. This is one of the biggest selling gates they'd ever taken, one of the highest pay-per-views they'd ever sold. He sells fights, and whether you like him or not, if he gets people interested, like I normally would have been like, excited about the fight, but nothing crazy. Whereas I was just hanging out for this card, just even when it was changed to Mendes, because Conor got everyone wound up, got me excited, got everyone fired up. So I love that fact that he gets people psyched. As for his performance, you know what? I bet they could fight 10 times, and I think Conor would win 5, and Chad would probably win 5. It was if Chad had kept it on the ground and just carried on working from his guard with elbows and just repeated that formula for 5 rounds, he would have won, I think. But Conor, props to him. At the end of the day, you can't fault him. Some people claim an early stoppage, but we knew where the fight was going. Conor was going to finish him, and he won, and he was the better man on the day. So, I'm excited to see what's going to happen now. Whether he could beat Jose Aldo is another question, but he survived the barrage from the wrestler. He managed to get back to his feet, and he picked him apart. So good on him.
I think as far as the 5 and 5 out of the 10 times they fought, I think you're probably right. If Mendes had stayed on top, and he did say that was his mistake. He made the choice to go for the guillotine submission, but there was something about McGregor and this whole event, that walkout. I'm not a big fan of the live music sort of walkouts. I've seen Mayweather come down with rappers all around him, and it looks messy. But the Sinead O'Connor singing "The Foggy Dew" really had my all my nerves tingling. And then he walked out, and there was a look in his eyes just before the fight, as Bruce Buffer was announcing his name, where he stood across and he just did that Mike Tyson thing of just watch, because Chad Mendes was pacing back and forward, and he stood there, arms open, staring him down. What followed his eyes, very Mike Tyson-esque. And there was something which showed, I just thought maybe this is not, he's not going to get beaten tonight. And the way he approached it, I thought was brave as well. Straight out with a spinning kick against the wrestler, wasn't afraid to use those. And I think it was those that really caused the damage. That early spinning kick to the body damaged Chad Mendes' gas tank and left openings for McGregor to pick him apart in the end. I do think if Chad Mendes had stayed on top for that, and I did get the feeling, I thought maybe we're in for this 5 round of lay and pray with Chad Mendes on top. But I'm so impressed with McGregor's striking in particular. Still think he's got work to do on the ground. When Mendes was on top, there was no real attempt at hip escapes, or he held him in full guard and just kept parrying the elbows. But I still think there's work to be done on his ground game. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I totally agree 100% with that. He has a lot of work to do on his takedown defense and his ground game. He got taken down relatively easily. And you're right, I think the body shots really did gas out Mendes. I mean, Mendes didn't have a great game. He was fit and he was in shape. Maybe not quite 5-round title fight shape. And I think if it come down to like the 5th round or something, and McGregor had just sneaked through because Chad gassed really badly, we could definitely say, it's because of the camp. But to get a second round, have him as gassed as he was, I think Chad could have gone and smashed out 3 rounds pretty comfortably, just with his natural fitness and what he was doing. And I think the body shots from McGregor, because yes, he landed a couple of good spinning kicks, but there was a few wicked body rips in there as well that really nailed him. And when you're fighting, even if you eat headshots, it takes it out of you. Like every single hit, every single kick, every single punch takes it out of you a little bit. And so I think McGregor did work down, knowing that Mendes would probably not be 100% in the gas tank area because he had the short notice, and you could see Conor really working the body, hitting those spin kicks. And I think that's kind of pretty much what won him the fight in the end. I think Mendes went for that guillotine because he knew he didn't have 5-round gas tank and he probably couldn't really push it through. So he went for that submission in the hope of getting a quick win. And Alpha Male are famous for their guillotines as well. So, and then I think kind of rolled with it, escaped with it very quickly, got up on his feet, and punished him and won with a beautiful cross in the end. So it was well done to Conor McGregor. But yeah, you're right. On the ground, he didn't really do anything, did he? He just kind of laid there and parried. And I would love to see him trying to escape, get back to his feet, parry, go for some submissions or do something. Because otherwise, I mean, every wrestler who watched that just thought, oh, sweet, now I'm just going to sit there and just sit on top of him for 5 rounds because he does nothing in the guard.
Yeah. I mean, one thing we shouldn't take away from as well is we're talking about his lack of action on the ground, but also he sort of semi-answered the question. He did stuff a couple of takedowns, which I was impressed with, but the other thing that really impressed me was his chin. He took about 4 or 5 like full-on heavy shots from Chad Mendes, and anyone who's watched the Lamas fight recently, Mendes can switch people off so quickly, and he just took them and kept coming forward. So I was really impressed with his chin, but I think you're right, that angle of Mendes maybe going for the guillotine because he didn't have it in him for the 5 rounds, that could have been what led to the guillotine and essentially led to him being taken out. The stoppage, in my opinion, I've had a few people talk to me or tweet me about. Was it Herb Dean seemed keen to jump in there? There was also rumours that looked a bit dodgy, especially with the UFC Golden Boy. If you watch the replay, first of all, there's no complaints from Mendes. He's not standing up saying I'm fit to fight. And also, if you watch how long it takes him to stand back up, I actually think that was an extremely astute bit of reffing, and Herb jumping in then, he was done in my eyes. And anybody who's looking to pick, was that a quick finish or stoppage rather, is just looking for holes to find some sort of way out so McGregor doesn't have that light on him as much as he did. Do you really think it was a quick stoppage, or do you think it would have been the same outcome no matter what if he carried on for another 10 seconds, 15 minutes, whatever?
Well, see, the thing was they stopped it at 4:57, so there would have been 3 seconds left, which is why people were like, oh, he was trying to stop it because he knew the end of the round was coming, because he knew the 10-second clapper had come, and there was kind of a UFC conspiracy. But let's face it, he dropped like a sack of concrete when he got hit. He was not in a happy place, and all he was doing was just hands around his head covering up, and Conor was just wailing on him for a few seconds. And I've refereed international fights before, and I probably went in pretty close to stopping it, possibly given him another couple of seconds, maybe 5 seconds, which technically may have taken him out of the round, but Herb's performing a main event with a fighter who's just eaten a beautiful cross on the ground in fetal position covering up, or on his hands and knees covering up. That was a fair stoppage. You can't really get angry. And you're right, Chad took a long time to get up. He didn't argue it. He knew he was done. So be it.
There was also a great amount of respect shown after that. I think first of all, it was nice to see emotion from Conor McGregor when the dust had settled and he had the belt. There seems to be somebody building something outside my room. That's going to be fun. But yeah, I think the respect that Mendes also showed at the end, saying Conor was the man and he was impressed with him. That to me doesn't show somebody who's bitter about it being finished, being stopped. It showed to me somebody who obviously knew that if anything else was going to happen, that it was going to be the same outcome. So I was very impressed with the way Mendes took the fight on 2 weeks' notice, the build up to it, the hype he added to it, and his performance. So it's a fair play to him as well.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Chad was a champ about it afterwards, and he said, I think to be honest, I kind of think Alpha Male kind of underestimated Conor McGregor a little bit. They kind of thought he was just not going to be. He was all talk and not going to back it up. And when he came out there and really ate Chad's shots, like they were going out of fashion and nailed some back, I think Chad would have been a bit surprised, and everyone was a little bit surprised that Conor just kept on coming forward and has a gas tank that just, no one have a gas tank that keeps on going. I think they were a little bit surprised by it. I think Conor earned a lot of people's respect by going out there, eating the punches and finishing the fight pretty quickly. Well,
they also had a little bit of inside info on McGregor from Team Alpha Male, because one of them got their hands on him before the fight had even started. Did you see the Faber-McGregor incident before the fight?
Yeah, I was kind of wondering whether that was just a UFC setup, because then suddenly they were announced as opposing coaches.
I know.
So I kind of thought maybe, but then they're not going to fight at the end of the series. Dana White was very specific that at the end of that show, they would not fight, Conor would not fight Faber. So it was no kind of setup for a big kind of fight or anything like that, which makes me think maybe, like, it was like when you read Faber's response or watch the video of Faber's response and Conor's response, I think they were kind of started joking, and then it got a little bit serious for a second, and then they were both like, what the hell just happened, and kind of walked off, and as they both said, there's nothing to it. Yeah. But it was a little bit weird.
It was very weird. It was a strange one, and more was made of it than was needed, I think. But it did add a little bit of spice to what was already a ridiculous weekend with McGregor and the news and what he was doing, breaking records with the weigh-ins, the fight itself, and that just on top was another little angle that just added a bit of spice to it. One thing that Faber did say, and was very obvious, and let's talk about this a little bit, was McGregor looked horrific on the weigh-in day. He looked, as Faber said, like a crackhead. In fact, Faber said he's seen better looking crackheads than McGregor on weigh-in day. And this to me is gets me thinking about what's coming in September. I think it's September, where they changed the rules on the IV, and fighters being able to basically take fluids via the IV after they've had huge weight cuts. I mean, you've got a medical background. You've also fought. Did you ever use IVs for when you cut weight?
No, see, my coach was always really not anti-weight cutting, but anti-big weight cuts.
Yeah.
And I was always pretty small for my division. I think the most I ever cut was 6 kilos, but I think for 4 of my 7 professional fights, I think I only cut 2 or 3 kilos. 2 of them I weighed underweight, and one I was outweighed by 4 or 5 kilos, and another one I just skipped lunch and weighed in at 76.2, and it was a 77 kilo fight, and I was like, I've kind of almost, I need to kind of pretend that I had to, that I've cut too much weight type things. I don't want my opponent to know that I was just naturally that light. But it meant that when I fought, I was 100% bang on to go on the day. There was no kind of gas tank issues or anything else like that from a weight cut perspective. So I think I never used IV. I have, however, put in IVs for numerous fighters. Dan Hooker I put in IVs for, and a few other guys in New Zealand, kind of the top echelon of New Zealand fighters, I have put IVs in and done stuff for, because it does make a big difference. But so excuse me, they talked about this whole UFC weight thing. Is it going to make a big difference? And why are they doing it? Are they trying to get rid of the weight cuts intentionally? The whole weight cutting thing, this whole IV thing, is mainly to stop certain types of doping that you can do. It's not to try and prevent a weight cut, as per se. If they want to prevent the weight cut, they just make you weigh in that morning of the fights, and there'll be way less weight cuts going on. The whole IV fluids. Now, if you go for a big run in the sun, or even in some BJJ sessions I've done in kind of middle of summer in New Zealand, I've lost 4 to 5 kilos in fluid just from a really heavy session. Your body is designed to lose 4 or 5 kilos of fluid in a really heavy, sweaty session. As long as you rehydrate properly afterwards, it does no damage to your body. However, some of the big fighters, they're kind of doing the stuff like 9, 10 kilos, some of them doing 12, 13 kilos. That is when you're going to need IV fluids to recover properly. That's when you're looking at serious kidney damage, a la Daniel Cormier when he went to the Olympics and they were doing massive weight cuts, and he eventually got renal failure and had to pull out of the Olympics, and a lot of people were very angry about it, which is why when he started back in MMA, he was fighting in a heavyweight division, because he didn't want any issues or have to do anything about weight cuts, because he knew his kidneys had been shot and there was a potential it could happen again. Now, he dieted down and lost the weight properly, so he didn't have to do any sort of cut other than a couple of kilos, I think, for his 205 fights, because he had put issues with kidneys, because they were doing massive big weight cuts. And I think we're going to start seeing some issues now in the UFC, because some of these guys that are doing the really big cuts are going to have issues if there's no IV fluid. Because IV fluid, when we use it in the hospital, in the emergency department where I work, that's when you get people who are like really ill, who need IV fluids. You can oral hydrate yourself pretty effectively if you lose 5 or 6 kilos, you Powerade, or if you don't have Powerade, a bit of salt, a bit of sugar and water, and you do it properly, you can get yourself hydrated relatively quickly, especially if you've got a 24-hour period. But when you're severely dehydrated and you're looking at kind of kidney failure type area, that's when you need IV fluid to rehydrate yourself properly, and I think we're going to start seeing some issues now in the UFC.
It's because of the doping that they're sort of talking it masking. It's one of the things that I read is blood doping. People actually putting blood back into them to give them more energy, and this the USADA is saying this they'd be able to detect. I think when they test for some sort of plastics that would show traces that they'd effectively being blood doped, they'll be able to stamp that out as well. When you talk about big weight cuts, Conor McGregor makes a huge weight cut. It's very, very obvious just how depleted he is, how scrawny and skinny, and how sunken his skin and eyes and look. My thing with this is he cuts a load of weight and he barely, he makes it, but it is a fight to get to 145. When it comes back round and he's next up to defend or to unify the titles against Aldo, it will be past the point where IVs will be banned. So that, for me, a few alarm bells are going. Will he be able to make the cut? I even thought, could this be the last time we see him at 145? He's talked very openly about going up to 155, and I think if he'd won the belt off of Aldo, maybe he would have done that. But it will be interesting to see how that affects him. I mean, when you cut that amount of weight and you don't replenish yourself properly, does it have an effect on things like your chin? Would it have an effect on motor skills? What are the negative effects that you could find if he cut that weight and couldn't get as many fluids back in his body as he needed for fight day?
You're definitely going to get knocked out easier. I mean, people say, if you're 24-hour period, you can get enough fluid back into you, can rehydrate yourself. Yeah, it's kind of like, yes, technically you might have enough fluid back in your body, but if you have, like even when you have a big night out and stuff like that, and then even if you get a good night's sleep, or you have the big night out on Saturday night and Sunday you feel a bit bollocks, but you still don't quite feel 100% on Monday. It's kind of the similar type thing. Your body has gone through a huge stress, essentially, a massive lot of kind of physical anxiety of having the dehydration, having your kidneys shut right down, your cerebral spinal fluid, your brain pressures and all that kind of thing, your blood pressures, all going to be so low, you're not going to be able to recover 100% in that 24-hour period. Yeah. Yes, you might get all the fluid back in your body and you might kind of be pegged and your kidneys are working normally, but they're not going to be at 100%. With IV fluids, you're going to get closer to 100% than you are than if you're doing it with oral hydration stuff. But I think we're going to find guys who they're pumped up on adrenaline, they're feeling pretty good, but they're not going to be performing at their best. Some of them are going to be gassing early. And I think we're going to see some guys who are going to be a little bit weaker in the chin because they just haven't got the brain is kind of still recovering from that kind of really serious session of severe dehydration. So in Conor's case, I'm wondering whether he's going to just look at changing his diet and dieting down so he doesn't have to quite cut as much weight. I know Dan Hooker used to do big cuts of kind of like 10 kilos, whereas I believe for one of his last UFC fights, I think his cut was only 1 or 2 kilos because he dieted down and really kind of worked it that way because he didn't want such significant pressure on his body, and he wanted to be able to perform better and get his gas tank better. So maybe Conor's going to look at doing things like that, or maybe I think we may see him and possibly a few other fighters look at it changing divisions. They might try it for a few fights, see how they go, see if they can do it without the IVs, and if they don't get the performances they want, they're going to look at jumping up. But I mean, a classic example is look at Rumble Johnson. He was a guy who used to do all these huge weight cuts and desperately be kind of flailing in his fights because he was so still recovering, I guess, from his severe dehydration, and he used to perform really poorly. And once he just thought, you know what, I'll fight at a much more natural weight, at a much more natural size, he's become one of the top 3 fighters in the world in that division. And I think we're going to see some other guys kind of taking that approach as well.
Interesting. I do like the way you've made it easier for our and me and my listeners to understand by moving it away from the experience you've had live in a cage to boozing on a Saturday night, and we've all kind of now gone, oh right, I do understand. I've had that Monday morning lag. In fact, I've had a couple of Wednesday evening lags that have followed some of my Saturday nights out. So maybe I should get some IVs that might pop them in the fridge and stick them next to the Jaeger bombs next time. It was I mean, overall, let's just sum up the McGregor one. I thought the hype train keeps on going. I think it's a good thing for the UFC overall. Even if you don't like McGregor, you've got to at least respect what he's done for the promotion and what he's doing for the sport, especially the lighter weight classes. As a character, he's amazing to watch. All that talking in the cage to Mendes, all the build up, the spinning kicks. He's flamboyant. He backs it up. This has got got to be well, it is a huge moment for the sport, and it's down to pretty much McGregor shining the light on it, and basically opening people's eyes to what they could do. And I don't just mean fans, I mean fighters as well. If you do more than just fight, if like you show yourself as a personality, if you basically bring yourself across in a certain way, you can transcend the sport to people that it reached more people. I've had more people talk to me about McGregor than any other fighter, than any other fight since I've been watching the UFC, and that says a lot, not just about how he fights, but the whole package he brings. So brilliant stuff. It will be interesting to watch the Tough series with him and Faber. They've basically put their two golden boys and tried to fix Ultimate Fighter with it. Whether it'll work or not, I'm sure it'll get viewers because of McGregor, but a shame there's not a fight at the end of it, even though they probably wouldn't ever get to the same weight class. But McGregor, 26 years old, quite a monumental thing to be doing at that age, and a brilliant night for the sport.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with that. Conor gets people interested. You saw that Jose Aldo was rated by many people as pound for pound the greatest fighter in the world, but no one really likes watching him fight. He's boring, and I'm not saying his fighting is boring. Some of his fights are interesting, but he as a person is boring. When he got knocked out and Chad Mendes picked up, Chad's an interesting fighter that people are interested in. He talks a little bit and gets amongst it. The sales increased even further than what they were with Jose Aldo, and Dana White and UFC are taking big notice of that because they don't really like Jose Aldo as a champion because he's just not interesting. He doesn't bring the people, whereas Conor brings the people to them. He gets people excited. There's an Irish guy in my work who's never even watched UFC before, but he still watched it for Conor McGregor. For his first ever UFC was watching Conor McGregor because he was like, he'd heard all the stuff and as an Irish person he wanted to get amongst it, and his friends are going to watch it. So he brings more people and interesting people to the sport. There's a few ladies I know, Rebecca's one of them, who just love Conor McGregor because they think he's cute and he's interesting and he's exciting, and he brings like a whole diverse range to the sport, and that's always a good thing because we want the sport to grow bigger, better, faster, and be more popular. And Jose Aldo wasn't doing that. At least Conor is. He's kind of like another version of there's a beautiful picture of Chael Sonnen holding a little baby Conor McGregor, Chael talked his way into fights and got people interested and excited, and Conor's taken a leaf out of Chael's book and he's doing it very, very well. But he's also a genuinely nice guy. And there's some things on here with Conor getting upset about one of his fans who had cancer, who died, and he'd gone out and visited some people. He'd done some other things like that. Like, he sounds like a genuinely nice guy as well, but he also is just exudes this amazing confidence, which is mesmerizing and attracts people. And so I think good on him, and I can't wait to see him fight again. I'm excited for his next fight already. Yeah.
I think you're bang on there. And also the little glimpses you get to see behind the scenes, like the embeddeds, like the countdowns. You see how nice he is to all the press and even the fans that are just trying to get stuff for eBay or whatever else. He'll stand there and he'll sign a load of them and completely accept they're going to do that, but he's happy for them to make money off of him because they're there for him. So very, very exciting time, and certainly showing the other fighters maybe how they could build a bit of excitement, build a brand, and within 5 fights to be a UFC champion, breaking those sort of records. Crazy stuff. But there was another fight on the card. I don't know if you noticed this one. That didn't get much press. But my God, I watched. I was gigging last night, so I was up late. So I got up early for this morning. And rather than have a coffee to wake me up, I watched the Lawler McDonald fight one more time, and I've got more adrenaline pumping through my veins at 9 o'clock in the morning than I would have had with 1,000 Starbucks coffees poured down my throat. What a fight! What a war! To say they had no press, they completely stole the show with regards to the fight, the battle. Both of them got in trouble. They showed such heart, such grit, but also they took some amazing shots and made it a complete. One of the best fights I've seen in a very, very, very long time. What are your thoughts on the Lawler McDonald war?
It was a war. When it started off, and in that second round, when Lawler started connecting and had Robbie kind of wobbled and his face was busted up. I thought, oh man, I really thought McDonald was possibly going to win this one. It's going to be a close fight. It looks like Lawler's just going to walk away with it. And then in the third round, Rory McDonald just comes out, wobbles him, starts smashing him. The fourth round is close, but I think McDonald kind of stole that one. And so if you go by the scorecards at that stage, the first round could have gone either way. You can really kind of 50-50 from. I'd have to watch it again really closely in judges mode with the judges scorecard to try and pick a winner for that first round. Second round, clearly Lawler. Third and fourth, possibly McDonald. And that fifth round, like the fight was literally going to come down to that fifth round, I think. Like if you gave Lawler a slight edge in that first, he was just kind of, two apiece at the fifth round coming down to finish it. And so I was really pumped, like kind of seeing it. But then just the damage that McDonald had taken, you could just see it. And then once he landed on that already broken nose and he just really crushed it, again with that beautiful, I think it was a straight right. Straight right, I think it was in the end, that just smashed his nose. You could just see him kind of go, oh, you know what, I think I want to keep my face. The fight's not worth it. And he just kind of crumbled under that one. What an epic fight, but so good for Lawler to come back. He was almost out on his feet, and then he came back and started landing shots. It was really, really exciting, and both those guys probably took years off their life with that fight, but what a performance from both of them.
We've just watched them die a little bit, but we enjoyed it, that's it. I thought right from the start, Lawler looked different. He was bouncing around with a different type of confidence. Joe Rogan sort of alluded to it with saying that when people get the belt around their waist, that it almost gives them the confidence to go to another level. I thought his movement was fantastic. His patience was brilliant. I was a bit worried that McDonald was because on the countdown they sort of said we're reapproaching this in a different way. I'm a more mature fighter, and I thought that was code for we're going to go very GSP. We're going to jab him and we're going to take him down. But Lawler's, first of all, his sprawls were fantastic. There was one which McDonald came in, and before he even touched him, Lawler was in the air looking like Superman with his legs out. But then the first round, I think you're quite right, that was very tight. But that was the round that Lawler broke McDonald's nose. That was it. When he went back to the corner, there was Sahabi said, "Don't blow it. Make sure you just clean it out, patch it up."
Yeah.
And that's when the breathing problems started. But then McDonald got that high kick, which wrapped around the back of Lawler's head, and we all thought, "Oh, he's all right." And then his leg did the funky chicken, and we thought, "Oh, he's not. Yeah. Oh, he's not all right." And then McDonald came in with kicks, about 10 head kicks, and then had him against the cage with these elbows that he just kept throwing as if they were hooks. And at that point, when Lawler, the bell saved him and he went back to his stool for getting ready for the third, he looked in serious trouble. And again, he was at the start of the third round. But McDonald had him in the first 30 seconds against the cage again, throwing punches at him. John McCarthy looked towards Lawler as if he was going to step in, and Lawler actually said, "I'm fine," kept fighting. And there's sort of an argument that McDonald let him off, because they said 4 minutes 30 seconds to go in that round, and Lawler was definitely on the back foot, certainly hadn't recovered from the last round, had taken another couple of shots, and then McDonald sort of stepped back and was a bit more patient, maybe too patient. But I would be patient if I'd been smacked about by Robbie Lawler like that. He's always dangerous. He's always got those hooks, and when you go in close, you are in danger of getting hit again. But all praise to Lawler for getting through that, getting to the end of that fourth round. There was that beautiful moment where the bell went, and Lawler, like a steaming bull, spat blood out of his mouth, and they both just faced off with John McCarthy, refusing to go back to their stools. But it was a proper Rocky moment where they're like, I'm still here. I am still here.
Yeah.
And then this is the difference as well, and I think Lawler's shown it not just in this fight, but he came out in that fifth round to win that fight. If you look at the two Hendricks fights before that, when he came out and it was 2-2 in the first Hendricks fight, he came out to win that first one, and unfortunately that led to a mistake that he got taken down, and that is what won Hendricks that first fight. In the second fight against Hendricks in that fifth round, he came out, and arguably that was the barrage he showed at the end of the round, where he was basically bouncing Hendricks just with huge hooks around the cage. That's what won him the title. And then same again, after another 4-round war, he stepped up, got off his stool, dug in and finished the fight. I'm such a fan of Robbie Lawler, his whole journey, his whole evolution, and that mentality of getting off the stool and going to knock people out to win it, not to leave it in the hands of the judges, is what is the press aren't going to sleep on his next fight. There's no way that they're going to ignore what this man brings, and whether it's a Hendricks fight or they're alluding to a McDonald rematch, but I think McDonald might want to just have about 6 months off and eat soup for a little while. I think Lawler really made a statement of the type of champion he's going to be, and I think that's a beautiful thing for the welterweight division.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think McDonald's possibly going to need surgery on that nose, and then it's going to be
possibly.
An issue with,
you are in the medical profession, are you, mate? He's going to need a new nose. He's going to look like Vanderlei Silva by the end of the surgery, I reckon.
But I wonder if he's going to have issues with that nose in the future. But I don't know. I think I think McDonald. I don't think he should have a rematch. I think McDonald should probably go out, have another fight, prove himself, and come back at maybe like Dong Hyun Kim or someone like that. Get a couple of wins under his belt, and then come back again. Because this is technically it'll be the third time he's fought Lawler if he goes back to it. So I think maybe we should space it out a little bit. Maybe bring another new contender in. Yeah, then there's also Johnny Hendricks. I mean, he won one and lost one. So if anyone probably deserves a rematch, a third rematch, is probably Hendricks over McDonald, because at least Hendricks has got a win over Lawler. But you're right, Lawler. Oh, what a man! I love the fact that Lawler also is one of the only UFC fighters in the entire company that doesn't spar anymore against opponents. He only does pad work.
Well, they said he actually said that because somebody questioned him at the press conference. For many years he didn't spar, but now he's back at ATT. He's sparring again, and he said actually that's what's helped sharpen him up. But it's also probably those years of not sparring have probably given him the chin and saved his brain from the unnecessary excess damage that can come with a few gym wars. So even though he's sparring now, I do think the fact that he didn't spar for a good chunk of his career has helped at his age and for the length of time he's been fighting keep his legs under him, basically.
Yeah, no, I didn't hear that about him sparring again. So I'm kind of, because I always kind of thought even light sparring would be good. Like at least you get your movement or working something else. But you know, if he was still winning fights and doing what he's doing without sparring, I was like, well, I can't really knock it, can I? But it's interesting to hear that he is back. I wasn't aware of that. So, but yeah, it's. He just looked really smooth. Like he just looked so polished when he's out there. He had great movement, and he just, like, I know Rory is a very, very good fighter, but some of the punches that Lawler was landing, it made it look like Rory wasn't a good fiter, and like kind of that first, second round, just the way he was managing to land punches that were kind of hitting McDonald before he'd even seen them. His ability to kind of close the gap and land some of those shots was quite. It took McDonald by surprise, I think. I think McDonald took a few kind of rounds to really kind of get into it and relax and kind of get Lawler's movement, because I think he really was taken by surprise by that. So I think Lawler is going to be a man to watch, and I think unless Hendricks comes out with something a little bit different, I think Lawler will walk away with the title again if they have a rematch.
Yeah, I can see that, definitely. It would be one of those things if Hendricks went just to lay and prey on him, we might have a very dull fight. But he's even shown that, Robbie Lawler's shown that in his last fight. Even if you do that, I'm still, when I get the chance and we start the bell again, I'm on my feet and I'm gonna do all I can to take you out while you're coming to do that. So very interesting times. A horrific cut on his face as well, mate. When he was doing the interviews, it was awful to watch. That slice, I didn't even see when that happened, but that slice up his lip where his lip, and it affected his speech a little bit. But when his mouth was opening, half of it wasn't. It was horrific, that gash, wasn't it?
That was a beauty. That was the only time I've seen something remotely that good was a drunk man who fell onto a glass vase.
Oh my
God! And the
God.
rim of the vase went straight through his lip like that.
Oh.
And that's all I could think of. I was like, I've seen something like this before, but this guy is a little bit bigger than Lawler's. But it was a beautiful elbow that did it. But when you push the lip against the teeth and the bone underneath it, the whole thing just splits right through like that. And that was a very deep one that had gone right the way up. It was. I was surprised because I thought that if McDonald could land a few more elbows on that, one could tear right up, and they may even stop the fight. And I was thinking, because he came out, and I think in the end of the fourth or something was that. It was getting quite large then. I think, sheesh, if he lands a few more elbows in that, we could have a stoppage, a medical stoppage from the doctor side of things, because it was quite a beauty.
It was nasty. Well, that's nice to see. The only other person you've seen is a drunk man falling on a vase, probably trying to smell some imaginary flowers or something like that. But that's all. It was horrific. But both of them looked like they'd been in a war by the end of it. McDonald, there's a brilliant photo somebody sent me on Twitter where it says, "So you want to be a fighter?" and it has a close up of Rory McDonald's face waiting to go into the fourth round. And you go, "No, I'm all right. I'd rather just be a chubby fan on the couch right now. That's it." Brilliant. Both those title fights were amazing for very different reasons. True respect to Robbie Lawler and McDonald, even though he lost that fight. He's gained fans off the back of that. So interesting to see what happens with the welterweight title next. Hendrick's likely to be lined up, but Dana White did kind of allude to a potential McDonald rematch after that. So we'll wait and see. Other fights on the card, there were some brilliant finishes. All the main card, apart from that, those title fights ended in a finish. Bermudez, Stevens. Great back and forth battle. Truly showed what sort of fighters they are. Stevens missed weight for this. There was sort of talk that maybe he was injured on the way in, or there was some other issues going round. But both of them just knocked the shit out of each other, really, didn't they, mate? What was your thoughts on that one?
That was a bloody war. I was quite surprised because they were battered and they were just going for it, and then it was back and forward. And I actually thought Bermudez was going to win it for a little bit. He kind of seemed to be getting some shots in and doing stuff, and then Stevens just kind of turned it around, and eventually it was that knee to the body and a few other shots that kind of took him out. So
it was that flying knee, right? He was backed up to the cage, and as Bermudez came in, it was a beautiful fly. Stevens isn't a very tall fighter, but he must have gone about 6 foot in the air then, and took Bermudez's head with him, and then he just dropped, and it was like you said. I thought Bermudez looked like he was going to take the better of Stevens. I still thought he was going to be a bit back and forth. But it looked like Bermudez was set to just be maybe a little bit of a level above. But Stevens to finish with a flying knee like that, a tremendous finish to that brawl.
Yeah, and it's interesting because when he did the flying knee, he jumped straight up. Like normally you get flying knees and they jump forward or they kind of jump in it, but I've never seen, not that I can think of off the top of my head, someone who's just jumped directly up with a flying knee like that. Like it was quite a weird flying knee, but
that's what made it look so high. That's what made it look so high, because he went straight up. It was kind of like, well, that's. But you're exactly right. He basically just launched himself up. Those squats, he must have been doing some deadlifts or something, because he flew, and that connection was as sweet as it comes. I say that it was almost as sweet as the Pickett Almeida a flying knee. That was 2 flying knees on the main card that finished the fight. Did you watch the Pickett Almeida fight as well?
Yeah, I did actually. It was actually because Almeida still got kind of knocked down twice, and he was still kind of struggling in some of the fight. But in the end, a beautiful KO win, and against someone, a veteran like Pickett, you've got to be happy for Almeida. It's kind of a good step, forward for him, and I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing him get out there again and do something exciting, because it seemed like quite an exciting, action-packed fight, but. The other problem was if you're getting knocked down twice like that, it doesn't really bode well for your top 10 prospects of coming in against other guys who are gonna. If you're getting knocked down by Pickett and no disrespect to Pickett, I don't mean that in a bad way, but I'm just saying if you want to go to smash up in the top 10 division and you're getting smacked down like that, it's kind of chin saved him more than rather brilliant skill or anything, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, and I'm a huge Pickett fan. He's obviously a countryman, and massive fan of him and what he's done with his MMA career. And when that first bell rang and he moved in, he looked brilliant. Physically he looked a lot better than he had done when he cut weight to 125. But also some of those duck and rolls under those hooks Almeida was throwing, his boxing really showed what level it's at. And he knocked him down, ducked, kept connecting, and I thought he's going to take this. Caused a lot of damage to Almeida, and then Almeida came out, and it was. The flying knee wasn't just beautiful because it was a flying knee. If you look at he held Pickett's head while he was in the air, and he brought Pickett's head down to his knee as he raised his knee to it. It was one of the it was the best flying knee I've seen I think I would class it as the best flying knee I've seen, and even better than the Aldo Cub Swanson 45-second or 15-second knockout, whatever it is. But just because of that technique, actually grasping his head and bringing it forward, and also the finish. When you watch Pickett fall back, he's out cold, and it wasn't nice to watch as a Pickett fan, but you've got to show a lot of respect to Almeida for weathering that storm, coming out and still risking. That's a high risk move against a very, very, very wily veteran like Pickett, and it paid off. Brilliant performance by him. Very gutted for Brad Pickett. I thought he looked brilliant apart from that, but changing of the guard, and it looks like Almeida's set for a top 10er next.
No, I think so, and it'll be interesting to see how he goes, whether he really picks up his game, whether he just underestimated Pickett, or Pickett just kind of has gone to the next level, because Pickett fought like he was, near a top 10 level guy. That was an amazing performance from Pickett. It was just a shame he got caught by that knee in the end, but as you said, he was rolling well, ducking under the punches, he was doing some damage, and I thought he was going to win too until Almeida came out with that big knee. So it'll be interesting to see what happens from here, because I think that Pickett is 1-4 now in his last 5, and I hope they don't cut him. Because I know UFC are very finicky about records, but I mean, Pickett has exciting fights. Like if you never go to a Pickett fight going, well, this is going to be boring. You generally know it's going to be an exciting, interesting fight. And I think if we can get him, they get him another few fights, maybe in the European side, get him a few wins, build up his record again or something. He's an exciting fighter. I think he's still got a future in the sport, so I'm keen to see more of him.
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't think they'll cut him. He's Dana White stated he's a big fan of his, and I think he'll bring a good fight no matter what. So I just hope he doesn't become the gatekeeper. I think he's got enough in him to go back, learn, and he got caught. That was basically what happened. So we'll wait and see what happens with the lovely Brad Pickett and Thomas Almeida next. Another stunning performance and a shocking way to lead to the win was Gunnar Nelson's against Brandon Thatch. Nelson looks. Like Thatch looked huge to start with. Let's just say that he looked absolutely massive, and I thought after the Story fight with Nelson, maybe he's going to be in trouble against such an elite striker and somebody that's going to be difficult to take down. But rather than take him down, he just thought, I'll just 1-2 him, and it was a beautiful punch combination that led to Thatch going on the ground, and then Nelson showed exactly what his bread and butter is: the quality of his jiu-jitsu, the transitions, rolling with him, and setting up the finish, which was inevitable once he got his back. Really amazing performance from Gunnar Nelson, even though he celebrated in his typical style by not even breaking a smile.
He's the most unhappy person to win in the world, eh?
Yeah, exactly. You wouldn't want to get him a nice Christmas present. You just wouldn't feel he'd be grateful enough, would you? That's it. Yeah.
No, that was a good fight, and again, he won, and it was an impressive win for sure. But I think he's the type of person where you want to build his record a little bit more, rather than like 2 fights ago, I think he lost to Rick Story. So, good win for him, and he needs to keep on going, but I think they kind of need to pad out his record a little bit, not in a kind of don't give him cans or anything, but I don't want to see, you get these guys, they get a good solid win that was exciting and looked really well, so they go right and they just kind of throw them to the line straight away, and you can ruin some fighters' career like that. Whereas I think Gunnar's got a bit of a future. I like to see him kind of, have some kind of top 20 fighter maybe, and slowly kind of work his way into the top 10, because he's clearly getting better and better with each fight.
Yeah, Rick Story was his last fight, so he was bouncing back off the loss on this one.
Okay.
His record at the minute is 14-1-1, but he's 26. He's only 26, and that's
exactly.
That is, and I also think this IV thing coming in will actually benefit a fighter like Gunnar Nelson. He doesn't cut much weight. He's a very small welterweight for that division. So I think. Whatever happens next, he showed that his striking is improving. He showed if he gets you on the ground, you are in trouble with this man. The way he went from side, he got the mount, then he switched so he could get more control to the side control, and then he switched it to mount again, rolling with Thatch into the body triangle, and eventually the rear naked choke, turning him over, and the speed at which Thatch tapped. He had barely got connected his hand to his bicep, and Thatch was tapping. So that just shows the level of technique we're talking about. But I think you're right. He's 26 years old. Let's grow him. Let's get that striking up to the par of or near to where his jiu-jitsu is, and then you've got a scary man at 170.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to seeing him, as I said, develop and come out there and see what's next. And maybe we'll see him versus Rory McDonald or something else a bit later on or something. I don't know.
I imagine because they've got a Dublin card booked. I think that's September or October. They've got Dublin booked. So, and I reckon they'll put him on there. He's obviously from the SBG camp and huge Irish following. He's sort of been taken in as an honorary Irishman for his association with Conor McGregor in that camp. So he's likely to be on that card. So it'll be interesting to see who they turn over and give him in that amount of time. But brilliant stuff. I hate his nickname, but love him as a fighter. Gunny Nelson. I've said this before. Crappiest nickname in the UFC, but one of the most intriguing fighters just because of his personality, but also because of the elite level at which one of his weapons is the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Fantastic. Really, really cool. Speaking of Celtic warriors and Celtic fighters, before we let you go, mate, and I've eaten another chunk of your time, so thank you very much for this. I just wanted to touch on next week's card. It's the UFC drop into Glasgow. I just want to get your thoughts on the two main fights. First of all, we're going to see exactly what the other side of the Celtic warrior spirit of this side of the ocean talks is like. The Irish are traditionally the quieter of the two Celts if you compare them to the Scottish. So it's going to be interesting to see exactly what Scottish fans bring. And from doing gigs up there and spending a lot of time up there, I did a load of gigs around the armed forces bases up there. They are nuts. So I can't wait to see what 10,000 plus Scottish fans screaming at the top of their voices are going to sound like compared to the Irish ones. But they've got two English blokes at the top of their UFC, the first trip to the UFC. They've got Bisping versus Tallys Latys and Pearson versus Evan Dunham. Let's get your thoughts on Bisping Latys first of all.
You know what? I'm a little bit of a loss. I'm not really quite sure who's... I think Bisping will win the fight. Like, I put it out there, I think Bisping will win the fight. But Tallys Latys is one of those fighters who... he just generally surprises me. Like, he comes out there and... I don't know, like, I think maybe I underestimate him or something, but I never kind of thought he was that great a fighter. But then he comes out and just
snuck up on the inside, hasn't he? He's snuck up on the inside. Suddenly he's, in his last few fights, he's looked devastating when he's needed to. So, and you're quite right. He's sort of been in and around and about the UFC, but he's now snuck up as somebody where you're going, hang on a minute, he's better than I think he is, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And like he's beaten Boach. He's just come forward, and he's on a big win streak as well. Like I think his last loss was something like 2010 or something. So he's on a fairly big win streak, and so for him, this is kind of I think this will really kind of boost him up into. Like it'll make the division really exciting for him, because if he gets a big win over Bisping, he's going to really kind of be launched forward into kind of approaching top 10 area and doing very well for himself. So I think Bisping is going to be a favourite, and I think Bisping should win the fight because I think he's got a slightly better striker than Tallys Latys, but it's going to be one of those ones where if Tallys comes out and wins, I'm not going to be massively surprised. Yeah. But as a betting man, I'm going to put down Bisping to win that fight. I think Bisping's just going to have better striking and will keep the fight standing and will take out a decision probably, would be my guess.
It's Bisping. It's likely to be a decision, mate. It's very much likely to be a decision. But Bisping, I think, will do what Bisping does best. He'll use his distance, his strike and his kicks to keep him at bay, pepper him away, cause damage with that. He's not a big knockout artist. He has got some knockouts on his record, but I think it will be a case of Bisping doing what he does very well. There's not been much heat or animosity into this fight on the build-up, which is different for a Bisping fight. Usually there's a little bit of an edge on the build-up, but it's been swamped by UFC 189, and I think because of that he might fight more, use his head rather than his heart, and when he does that, he is one of the best kickboxers in the UFC, even if he's not one of the most devastating kickboxers in the UFC. Late is a tough challenge. He's had some tough fights. He's had Ed Herman, Francis Carmont and Tim Boach within his last 4 fights. And that's not an easy lineup, and he's come through all of those, so you can't sleep on him. But I just think it's set for Bisping to do what he does, keep him at bay and get the decision, in my opinion. Ross Pearson versus Evan Dunham. Now this, I don't think will go the distance. Both of them very good boxers. Both of them, also susceptible to getting knocked out. So it's one of those where I think it's going to be a test of chins, and it's also going to be I think it's going to be a stand-up boxing fight from my point of view. Hope that Ross Pearson wins it. He's a countryman, and I think he's got more. He's got a bigger path to still walk in the UFC than Evan Dunham. Evan Dunham's been around for a long time, and he is a very, very good fighter. Both of them are coming off of wins, but I think Pearson can take it. I think his boxing looks great at the minute. His slip and rolls, and also if he hits you with a left or a right, he's likely to daze you and then finish you. So fingers crossed for Ross Pearson. What's your thoughts on that fight?
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one, because, Dunham, he's coming off a win, but he's fought some really badass fighters. He's got a win over Gleason Tebow, and then his 3 losses are Rafael Dos Anjos, Donald Cerrone, and Edson Barbosa, which, there's no shame in losing to those guys. Those are some of the baddest men on the planet in that division. So it'll be interesting to see how he goes. He's fighting at top level, but he's just not at that top level, if that makes sense, because he's all those fights. I think except the Rafael Dos Anjos one, I think he lost decision to, but Cerrone submitted him, and Barbosa TKO'd him. So I think Pearson's got amazing boxing, and he's just on a roll at the moment. And his last fight, Pearson looked so good, and so I think I'll give him a slight edge, but Dunham's one of those guys where I think he's been thrown to the wolves a little bit, and I think he will come out stronger. I think the Rodrigo Dam fight, which he last won, although it was a decision, he still fought well, and I think he will give Pearson a real test. But I think it's going to be a great fight for the Glasgow card, just because they're both going to stand and bang, and it should be an exciting, interesting fight from that perspective. There's not going to be like a lay and pray or a boring fight. It should be one that they go out there and basically smash each other, which should be good. Exciting
stuff. And there are some Scottish fighters on this card as well. There's Jojo Calderwood, Stephen Ray, Robert Whiteford, all on this Scottish card. So the Scottish fans will have something to cheer for, and I'm sure they're going to make themselves heard. I'm very excited to see, to show the world what the other side of our Celts can deliver, because they, like I said, traditionally the Irish are the calmer of the two Celtish warriors spirits over this side of the pond. So I'm just looking forward to the event. I think it's about time that Scotland got an event up there, and also because of the fighters coming through, I think they deserve it, and they've got some fighters that could be set to be very big stars. I think Stephen Ray's definitely one to watch. Robert Whiteford's training out of ATT, and if you look at their roster of that weight division, there's some monsters, absolute animals that he's training with. So hopefully we're going to see there's not just the surgence of Irish MMA, but Scottish MMA as well over the next 12 months, 2 years, and fingers crossed, maybe even a champion from one of those wonderful areas of Scotland. I think Stephen Ray is, if people don't know him, he's definitely one to watch. Was a Cage Warriors champion, and looked amazing in his UFC debut. So looking forward to that fight, and very much appreciate you taking all this time as well, mate, to talk some punch waffle with me and UFC 189. Before we let you disappear, just let people know where they can get hold of you, and how's the gigs going as well, mate? How was the comedy festival? That was one thing.
Yeah, really good. If you guys want to Twitter me, just at Dave Danger 5, it's the number 5, or on Facebook, just look for Dave Danger and you will find me. Gigs are going really well. I had 3 sold out shows in the festival, had to put on a 4th show, which got pretty good reviews, I'm off around the country on Friday, do a gig down in Hamilton and roundabout, so things are going nicely. It's one of those things where, as a comedian, once you kind of get like I've got about 30 minutes now of just really top-notch material. I'm kind of doing like 10-minute sets here or 15 here, and I can just mix and match material and kind of make sets to kind of suit crowds. And once you've kind of got like some really good material, it's fresh, it's current, and it's doing really well, gigging in comedy just becomes so it's really enjoyable because the crowds love it, you love it, you're confident in your material, and yeah, I'm just kind of in the zone at the moment. Things are going really well, so very happy from that respect.
That's wicked, man. That's exactly it with comedy. The more, say with fighting, the more strings to your bow, the more ammunition you've got that you could throw at an audience or use to defend yourself from one. You can just sit back and enjoy and know you can handle pretty much any situation that you get thrown in, whether it's a working men's club in the north of England, a beautiful festival down in New Zealand, or if you're staring out at a wonderful beach with the sun beating down, getting ready to drink some free beer, eat some food, and do another gig this evening. So, hey, look, man, hopefully we will cross paths physically at some point, because it's always a pleasure talking to you. So, look, thank you very much for doing this again. We're going to get you back on as many times as possible, to be honest, mate. I really enjoyed talking to you, and your insight's fantastic. So we will catch up. We'll pick another card, and we'll get you back on, Dave, all right?
That sounds amazing. Thank you so much, Bryan, and looking forward to getting you on our podcast, which we've been a bit slack with, but Him versus Her is definitely, there's some works going on in the background. We're going to get you on there and you can answer people's private questions and give them medical advice. It'll be hilarious.
Do you know what? We should just explain what Him versus Her is, because I've listened to your episode. You do it with Rebecca Ryan Long, and it's basically you two show what sort of freaks you really are and stuff you get up to, but what you allow, that means that people can ask you all sorts of questions about all sorts of things, and some of the topics you cover a prudish Englishman like me would struggle with, but you handle beautifully. And I did love it. You were talking at one point about some sort of dealing with somebody, was it with a horse dildo or something like that?
Yep.
That right?
Yep. That happened.
So basically, you were in the emergency room and you were treating somebody who had hurt themselves with a horse dildo, and then at the end of it, you asked. At the end of it, you said, "Hey, throw us your questions." And I was thinking, all right, it's going to be like this. You're like, if you want to know what colour to paint your front room, I was just thinking, how can you go from horse dildo to asking people what colour, to get them to ask you what colour they should be painting and decorating their houses? I thought that was hilarious, mate. I think if I want to decorate my house, I'll definitely be in touch with the bloke who's got experience of dealing with a man with a horse dildo up his arse.
Yeah, no, horse dildo black is the new colour. Just paint your house that way, you can't go wrong.
Hey man, been a pleasure talking to you. I'll catch you soon. Take care, Dave, alright?
Brilliant, mate. Thanks very much.
So that was Dave Danger. To be honest, I didn't mean to leave the interview on the note of horse dildos and the like. Not the way I expected to finish the interview, but check out his other podcast, Him versus Her. It's very funny, very interesting, with Rebecca Ryan Long as well. And they talk about all sorts. You would be surprised, unless you knew him, then you wouldn't be surprised exactly what sort of stuff they end up talking about on there. But brilliant insight from Dave on the UFC 189 card. Always enjoy talking to him. Check him out on Twitter at Dave Danger 5. Like I said, at Dave Danger 5 number 5 on his Twitter, and say hello to him. He's also on Facebook. Search Dave Danger and he'll pop up there. Very nice man, and really appreciate the time. So thanks again, Dave. Also, just to remind you, if you do want those UFC Glasgow after party tickets, go. I'll put the link up on Twitter and also on the Facebook page, or get in touch with Peter Knox at NoxyCube on Twitter. Let him know you want to come to the party, and it should be exciting. I can't wait to see the photos and exactly what goes down there. But I wish I was up in bonny Glasgow. I was going to say sunny Glasgow, but it's certainly not sunny in Glasgow. There's a reason they call it the Hydro Arena, is because it's always wet up there, I think. But it's a brilliant place to go. Can't wait to see what the Scottish fans have to offer, and I'm sure the Scottish fighters are going to rise to that occasion. Just again, thank you to We Are MMA UK for sponsoring the podcast, and also hashtag Team MMA for Life, as always, still helping me grow. And I love interacting with the other people on Twitter there. Some real genuine fans, very knowledgeable about MMA. So if you're into it and you're not part of hashtag Team MMA for Life, check out the hashtag, contact them there and get involved, because a brilliant bunch of people. That's it from me. We are going to be back next week. We'll have reaction from all the UFC Glasgow cards. Look forward to the Ronda Rousey Betch Correia fight. I say look forward to it, and I say fight is I can't imagine it lasting particularly long, but still very exciting stuff on the horizons. I'll leave you alone. Enjoy your weeks. I'm off to have a beer. You have a good one.